"Adrian, you actually thought I loved you?" Clara said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her voice dripped with venomous amusement, her hand resting on the arm of the man beside her. "Adrian's former best friend, Ethan. You were just convenient. I needed someone desperate enough to believe in fairy tales." Adrian's world cracked open right there, under the warm chandeliers, under the eyes of people who suddenly looked away out of pity. His heart pounded in his ears, his chest tightening as the weight of humiliation pressed down. He had given her everything, his trust, his future, his pride, and in return, she had destroyed him for sport. Clara's smirk widened as she whispered her final blow. "You were never enough, Adrian. You never will be." He didn't shout. He didn't cry. He just stood there, motionless. And then he smiled. A small, cold curve of his lips that carried no warmth. That smile wasn't forgiveness. It was a promise. The promise of revenge. Adrian vanished that night. No goodbyes, no explanations. The small town where everyone knew everyone soon forgot the boy who once believed in love. 3 years later, Adrian Locke returned, not as the broken man they remembered, but as something colder, sharper. His eyes no longer carried hope, they carried purpose. He had spent every sleepless night building it, his revenge. He had risen in the corporate world like a ghost climbing from his own grave. The company that had once rejected him now begged for his partnership. His once quiet demeanor was replaced with silence that unsettled people. The naive boy who once wrote love poems for Clara had become a strategist who could destroy reputations with a single email. And Clara? She had married Ethan. Their faces now appeared in glossy magazines, Power Couple of the Year. But behind the perfect smiles, cracks were forming. Ethan's business was struggling. Clara's social circle whispered behind her back. Adrian knew every detail. He had made sure of it. He'd studied them, their weaknesses, their debts, their dirty secrets. Each file, each message, each photograph. A piece of the puzzle that would eventually bring their empire crashing down. One night, standing on the balcony of his high-rise apartment, Adrian poured himself a drink and stared at the city lights below. The reflection in the glass barely looked human. "Revenge isn't justice," he muttered to himself. "It's balance." And so he began. Quietly, methodically. He bought out Ethan's struggling investors under a different name. He fed rumors into the right ears. He leaked small, poisonous truths about Clara's manipulations to the media. Slowly, their world began to rot, from the inside out. But revenge has a way of consuming its architect. Adrian began to dream of her voice, mocking him in the dark. He'd wake up drenched in sweat, trembling with rage and emptiness. The more he destroyed them, the less he recognized himself. He smiled more often now. That same cold, empty smile that first night. People began to fear it. He didn't care. Fear was power. One evening, he attended a gala. The same kind of place where his humiliation began. And there she was. Clara, dressed in gold, her eyes lifeless, her husband drunk beside her. Their eyes met across the room. Her lips parted in shock, as if seeing a ghost she once buried. Adrian walked past her, his expression unreadable. But as he passed, he leaned in close enough for her to hear the words he'd been saving for years. "Do you remember that night, Clara? When you said I was never enough?" Her breath caught. He smiled. The same smile that had haunted his mirrors for years. "Now I'm everything you'll never have again." And he walked away. That smile was his revenge. The next months unfolded like a storm. Ethan's company collapsed after Adrian's anonymous acquisition stripped it bare. Their home was sold, their accounts frozen, their power couple reputation shredded by scandal. Clara's name appeared in tabloids with the word betrayal attached to it. Ethan accused her of leaking private information. Their marriage fell apart. And Adrian watched, not from joy, but from hunger. Each downfall was a sip of poison he mistook for victory. When Clara tried to reach him, he ignored her calls. When she appeared at his office, begging for mercy, security escorted her out. Still, she kept coming back, thinner, more desperate each time. Once, he saw her through the glass doors, standing in the rain, makeup running down her face. She whispered through trembling lips, "Why, Adrian? Why are you doing this?" He said nothing. He didn't need to. The silence was his answer. But something unexpected began to twist inside him. The thrill was fading. Her suffering, once his goal, now felt hollow. He found himself sitting alone in his apartment, surrounded by symbols of success, the penthouse, the whiskey, the quiet, and realized he felt emptier than ever. His revenge had devoured everything else, his friends, his warmth, his laughter. Yet he couldn't stop, because stopping meant facing what was left of himself. So he kept going, not out of hate anymore, but out of momentum. Revenge had become his identity. When Ethan was found bankrupt and ruined, Adrian didn't feel triumph. He just felt tired. And when he saw Clara one final time, in a small cafe, dressed simply, eyes hollow but strangely calm, he almost didn't recognize her. She looked up at him and whispered, "You got what you wanted. So why don't you look happy?" Adrian stared at her for a long moment. His voice came out like gravel. "Because happiness died the night you laughed at me." Clara blinked, tears gathering but not falling. "Then you let me win twice." He froze. But before he could respond, she stood and left. The words stayed. They burned. Months passed. Adrian had everything: wealth, power, control, but peace was a stranger. He began to realize that revenge had not restored what was taken. It had only taken more. His victories tasted like ash. His nights were silent but haunted. Sometimes, he would catch his reflection and see the ghost of the boy who once believed in love. The smile remained, his armor, his curse. Then one morning, news broke. Clara had left the city. Vanished. No trace. Some said she went abroad. Others said she couldn't live with the ruins of her past. Adrian felt nothing. At least, he thought he didn't. Until he found the letter. It was delivered anonymously. A simple white envelope with his name written in familiar handwriting. Inside, a single note. "You were right. You became everything I could never deserve. But revenge doesn't rebuild, it only buries. I hope, one day, you stop digging graves for ghosts." Adrian stared at the words for a long time. The ink blurred as his hand trembled. For the first time in years, his smile broke. He looked out over the city, the empire he built on bitterness, and finally understood. His revenge hadn't been against her anymore. It had been against himself, the part of him that once trusted, once loved, once felt human. And he had won. Completely. But in winning, he had destroyed everything worth saving. Adrian leaned back, closed his eyes, and whispered into the silence. "She was wrong about one thing. I was enough. I just spent too long proving it to the wrong person." And then, slowly, that cold smile faded, leaving behind only the man who had burned his soul for justice. He heard her words again in memory, "You'll never be enough," and smiled one last time. That smile, not a victory, but a finality, was his revenge. Moral of the story: revenge may fill your hands with victory, but it leaves your soul empty forever.